All right, well, we're gonna go ahead and get started here. Do you want to open us up again?
Yes, sir.
All right, sounds good.
Certainly. Okay. Most High Abba Yahuwah, we come before you to dine at your table to eat this spiritual food that you have prepared for us. We look forward to it being fruitful to all that receive it into their hearts, minds, and spirits, which are the very things that you examine. Abba, we thank you for pulling us out of the darkness and into the light of the truth through your word, which is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction of righteousness, and most of all is inspired by you, the Holy One, who rideth upon the heavens. We ask this in Yahusha's mighty name. So be it.
All right. All right, good. And now that we got all of the weather forecast out of the way, we'll, we'll move forward. Hold on.
Ooh.
So we're going to start like we normally do with a word exercise for you to come up with three thoughts, quick thoughts. It could be, words. I typically would say three words, but it could be a short phrase. Three things regarding the following word. And today, Kathy, we'll start with you. Today's word is tradition.
Tradition, behavior, rule following, and conditioning.
Okay, good. Q.
Ritual, customary, and I'm going to follow up on Kathy's words, conditioning.
All right. Good. I would say some of the same. One, sometimes ancestry, customs, and behavior as well. Good.
Good.
So last week, we started our discussion and lesson on faith, part one. And this is just a summary again of what we talked about. And of course, we're continuing that on this week. But last week, we talked about the meeting of Joanne and Jason, who were in the video, who had some very valid questions regarding faith that they may have and have experienced. We talked about about man's definition regarding faith is accurate in the natural world, but does not have the full counsel of the spiritual world. We discussed that we have faith in the unadulterated word about the word of Elohim in spirit and in truth. We also discussed the scripture, the most, the very familiar scripture to most, especially in the Christian faith, which is Hebrews 11:1, which has words of some stumbling blocks that most people are very unaware of. And that scripture reads as faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. We talked about the just using that one scripture regarding faith does not give the full counsel of faith via the scriptures, as we referenced Proverbs 4:7, 2 Corinthians 5:7, James 2:14 through 26. Romans 10:17, Ephesians 6:10 through 18, and that brings us the full counsel of what Elohim states regarding faith for those that follow him. We also discussed that faith without works is dead, meaning that faith takes action or execution of righteousness to bring life and spiritual life to the spiritual body. We also talked about spiritual life being a privilege and not a right, and we are not to have blind faith, we carry our shield of faith as we discussed in Ephesians 6. We also talked about the masses that are spiritually blind and deaf that are also led by those that are blind and deaf. And we talked about the masses that do not hear spiritual matters before the ushering in the manifestation of the kingdom on earth. We discussed the colliding of the two worlds, the natural world, which is the faithless world, and the spiritual world, which is the faithful world, the remnant, and then the masses. And then lastly, as far as a bullet item, we discussed a healing or spiritual surgery that needs to be performed to heal the blind man or the masses who do not have the eyes to see or the ears to hear. This mass surgery will come from the manifestation of the kingdom on earth. Anything we want to add to that from our discussion in our lesson last week?
That covers it.
Yeah, I agree.
Good. All right, so having faith in something, someone, and including God, Elohim, we talked a little bit about before, faith is also trust, believing, and confidence. So when we have faith in someone or something, and including our Creator, we trust them, we believe them, and we have confidence in them. And whatever the matter is, when we talked about individuals, we talked about when I say I have faith that you can accomplish this, is because I already know what you're capable of doing. I know you as a person. I know what your abilities are. Therefore, it gives me faith that you can facilitate or execute on what you're trying to accomplish. Most people don't look at that when it comes to our Creator, unfortunately, which is the same thing. So we have to, trust and believe and have confidence that he's going to do what he says he's going to do, or else we don't have faith in him the way that we say that we do. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right, good. So we talked about last week that faith is subjective. When we express to someone that we have faith, as I just said, in them, is because we know their characteristics that they possess. We know their abilities, capabilities, how they think, and how they operate in order for us to determine if we have faith in them for a given cause, reason, or situation. We also discussed in like manner, we are to have faith in our Creator by knowing him through the hearing, seeing, and reading of his unadulterated word in the spiritual wilderness, which is without the camp, which is where he can be found by way of the Holy Spirit and the true prophets, which are who are both Hebrew and Jews of the Spirit. This is accomplished by invoking the remnant protocol, which we've talked about, which is what all true prophets of old and new had and has to do by faith. Therefore, we are to have faith in knowing what is true and absolute in spirit and in truth, thereby steering clear and walking away from that which we know is not the truth of Elohim. Any thoughts regarding that statement? All right, so we're all in agreement there?
Yeah, we're sound on that.
Good.
Yep.
Good. All right, so, and this is going to lead to a lot of discussion. We're gonna talk today. So should we have faith in? As a discussion point, I want to get some feedback from you guys regarding some of the following things. And I don't want you to think that there's necessarily a right or wrong. It's all about reasoning. And that's what I want us to do, is reason some of these matters are, because these matters are what's taking place in the world today. All right, so the present points regarding why we should or shouldn't have faith in some of the following. Should we have faith in science?
Are
Go
you okay? You want us to answer them individually? I mean, by
Yeah,
number? Oh,
yeah, by number. Mhm.
well, I think we should because it's an absolute. I mean, like some things it can be manipulated, but that manipulation will show. So, yeah, I think we should have faith in science.
All right, Quest.
Well, primarily, I don't think we should solely believe in science. I mean, first thing we should believe in is the creator. Now if the science follows
Right.
those that are getting to know their creator first, then we would be willing to take some consideration to the science part.
Exactly. So yeah, and that's the difference. And when we know our creator first and have those that are following that which is right or righteous, then we can follow the science. Science is not, science can be a stumbling block, which it has been, as we know, because people look at science and look at nothing else, or they look at what they think they know that science is giving us, and then try to turn around and equate that to who our creator is, which is backwards. So
Mhm.
Yeah, that's why I was
turning the
saying
world.
it could be manipulated.
Right. Well, yeah, and that's why, yeah. So the way Quest phrased it, which is, what I agree with as well, is that, under the right auspice and authority, yes, we are to believe in science. So what both of you said, yes, we should believe in science for what it is, but we should believe in that when it's under the right leadership, that's under righteousness under our Creator. That's where science will make a difference, and we'll see that as the kingdom on earth is manifested as well. It's not that science is going to change. Science is what it is. He created nature. He created science. So he created that for a reason, for us to be able to deliver and do specific things. But when he's not in the equation, that's a problem. And when we forget about him and then just go on science, that's a problem. And that's the manipulation and things. And that's how things get twisted and easily changed. And that's how some of the cunning ways happen, over the generations and down the thousands of years, where people started believing in everything other than our creator and just believe in what they knew, which was science from a natural perspective. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Hmm.
So how about people, family, friends, co-workers, our community or society? Should we have faith in them?
It depends. I mean, what's your history? What have they shown you?
Right.
Society, no. Co-workers, no.
Why do you say no to co-workers?
I mean, because hence the word co-workers. I mean, I don't put any more value in it than that. I mean, I don't go to work to make friends. I'm there to do a job, and I'm very private at work. I don't sit up there and talk about my personal life or things like that. So there would be no reason for me to have any faith in them. I mean, I have faith that they're going to do their job, and I hope that's what they're going to do. But as far as like faith in how I have faith in my family, some members, no, I don't expect that from of them because that's not what they're there for. That's not what I'm there for.
All right, and Q, what would you say?
Well, what I would say to all three of those, or and then the fourth one being society, we have to be wise at having faith in certain individuals because those people are practically under the world's control. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And they don't believe as we do. So I can have faith in some things, but in other things, not so much. You know, just as we are to judge a tree from the fruit that it bears, we
Right.
can read a certain spirit of those that have our best interests at heart, and we are to deal with them accordingly. So that
Mhm.
applies to family, friends, co-workers, and society.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah, I agree. And sometimes, we can have faith. We can have faith in friends or coworkers that are part of extended family that we can't even have in our own family. So I want to make that clear as well.
That's true.
And a lot of times, again, people go by the natural or the science, the DNA that you may share with your family and think that you have faith in them because you share genetics or DNA. That's not the case. Typically, that relationship is built not on DNA, it's built on trust, love, and other factors that come into play. So you have a
And
lot of people
behavior.
that you're related to that sometimes you don't trust and you don't have faith in them because of what they've shown you. They show you who they are. So yeah, I agree 100%, Cato, with what you're saying regarding, family, friends, co-worker, society. We have to know them, know what their thoughts are, and discern their spirit of where they're coming from, and know that we have faith according to what they show us.
Mhm.
All right. So how about government leaders?
Oh, man. Wow. In similar fashion as we deal with our family, friends, and
Right.
co-workers, the same thing applies to them.
Exactly.
We have to judge a tree from the fruit that it bears. And if it's bearing bad fruit, then we know that we can't trust those individuals, until they demonstrate something otherwise, because we know that the government is in bed with Satan in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So just to accept governmental leaders by faith, we have to be wise again, because we don't know who they are. And until we do get to know who they are, we can't just blindly accept them by having blind faith.
Yeah, because being a government leader is just a title. They're first people. So
Right.
you have to take in the consideration of the reasons, like Cato stated with number two, because a title does not define who you are.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So
Exactly.
Exactly.
So what about traditions? Which was our
depends
word
on
for
what they
today.
are.
Exactly. If they're rooted from the biblical foundation,
Mm-hmm.
then yes, we stand on faith of those. But worldly traditions, no, we could do without those.
Right.
Because for the most part, we've been taught lies through those traditions, vanity, things wherein there is no profit.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Want to add anything there, Kathy?
No, I agree.
Yeah, and we touched on that a lot with our lessons before on plagiarism, paganism, and secularism. So we know that there's a lot of traditions that were of traditions of men and not traditions of the Most High. And we are to have faith in the Most High, so we can have faith in His traditions, like the holy feast days and and thereof, but not anything else that can be contrary to that, which would cause conflict and violation of His laws and His ways. All right. So how about the economy? Are we to have faith in the economy and the Dow, the Nasdaq, and S&P?
No, we are to be in this world, but not of the world.
All right.
So, in terms of doing that, we just understand that the economy is a part of government that allots us the ability to take part in doing things that functions in this government. You know what I'm saying? But in terms of taking all of our savings and et cetera and dumping it into the Dow and the S&P 500, I don't think that is wise. So, and it's of the world. So we know that you can't trust in that system or government. It's manipulated anyway, as we saw in the movie Money Monster.
Right. Exactly.
Mhm. So I
Yeah.
need to dump my 401k.
Huh?
So I should dump my 401k.
Well, that's a decision you're gonna have to make. But
I know. I'm just
no,
just
really,
being
yes.
silly.
Well, it's there are a lot of things that'll come, and of course, the more knowledge you have regarding what the Word of God teaches us, that's how we should be basing our decisions, based on what the knowledge, the spiritual knowledge and intelligence, and not man's knowledge of intelligence. We know all of we know that this world is going to end as far as the power of this world that we live in, that you know today, which you can see it tumbling down now, kind of back and forth. So people still have faith in this world. It's still not understanding what's to come next. They have faith and want to hold on to the economic system and the politics and all of those things and government leaders and all of that, still not knowing who their creator is and what the end result is to the Most High plan of salvation, which they know not at all. So the economy plays a part of that as well. The economy is all about wealth and wealth creation and how to distribute wealth. It's about, and it's like the classes we took in college, macro and microeconomics, supply and demand, things of that nature, whatever, who needs what, and someone making a decision as to who's going to get it. Is that a fair way of doing? We look at this world today, we know a lot of people don't have food to eat. What does the economy care about that? What does the economy say about that?
Not my problem.
Pretty much, that's what they say. So the economy is based off of those of the rich of the world, and it's for them to control and to manipulate, as you say, certain things to happen based on what they have and what they put into it, and who should get what, and how much money they're going to potentially make from it. That's what the economy is all about. It's a moneymaker for the rich. So are we to have faith in that? No, we're not. And I know that's very controversial for a lot of people and a lot of decisions that have to be made. What's going to happen when this crashes or that happens? Well, what do you think is going to happen? And then that's when judgment day sets in too. Well, if you know my word and know what I said, then you would have followed me and not followed anything contrary to who I am.
Exactly.
And that's what we have to keep in mind. Same thing for the next topic, religious leaders. Are we to have faith in them? Well, we can only have faith in them if they follow the one and only true creator and teach the word according to that which is unadulterated and not twisted based on lies, denominations, and anything contrary to his word, precept upon precept, line upon line, making your yay, yay, and your nay, nay, and not, falling subject to anything contrary. Exactly. But we know that most of them we cannot follow, or all of them we cannot follow. Mainstream religious leaders we cannot follow. We can only follow those that are the true prophets, which we identified are in the wilderness, basically in the shadows, which most of the world doesn't know or even pay attention to.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So as far as nationality, the country, flag, Constitution, patriotism, should we have faith in it?
It's all man-made, it's vain. It has no meaning. I don't believe that we should have faith in it because the world is going to change from the creator's perspective.
Right. Kathy?
No, I agree. No.
So how about God of Israel, Elohim Shel Yasharu? Are we to have faith in him?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
He's
Good.
consistent from the beginning to the end. He's shown that all throughout the book. As we continue to go through these lessons and scriptures, it just continuously gives us assurance that the creator is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Therefore, we have his main attribute or characteristic that he does not change. So that is someone, being the Almighty, who is someone that we can truly trust upon, and have faith in knowing that he's going to do exactly what he has written in his word, as it says in Isaiah 55:11, it will not come back void, because if it does, that would prove that he's a liar. And as we know from the book of Titus, the creator cannot lie.
Right. Exactly. And just to add to that, I mean, he's the one that also shows us that everything else, number 1 through 7, is contrary, can be contrary to who he is. And if those things are contrary to him, then we should not have faith in those things.
Exactly.
But if they do align with him under his regime and jurisdiction, then of course we can have faith in it. All right. So it's all about doing the right thing for the right reasons. And the right reasons are following the God of Israel, Elohim. And if all of those things, science, people, governments, traditions, and the economy, and religious leaders and nations were to do the right thing for the right reasons, they would all know the same creator, and we would all be under their jurisdiction, and there wouldn't be divisions and denominations and things of that nature, which has confused the entire world, which allows us to be in the state that we're in today. So once it is back under the rule of God of Israel, then we can have faith that those things will take place for those that believe in him. Of course, we still know that there's a third of the population that won't follow, and that's fine. But we know the other 2/3 are the ones that are going to reap the benefits of knowing who their creator is, are in the kingdom, and want to be governed by kingdom rulership.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right. So the fun part. Last week, I gave you guys, or all of us, a homework assignment. Interact with some other people of other cultures, in your social or working circles, to find out some information. I listed 5 questions. The name of their culture. 2, what are some of the beliefs and traditions of their culture? 3, does your contact believe in the traditions and culture? 4, what, if anything, would they like to change about their culture? And 5, what are some of the good, bad, and ugly that they see in the American culture, if any? All right, so did both of you get a chance to complete this assignment?
Yes.
I did with one participant in my travels.
All right, who wants to start? Kathy, you want to start with this?
Sure. Okay. I'm just gonna go by the numbers because I just wrote it down that way. My friend is from Iraq, and she is Muslim. And she's been in the US almost 5 years. She's married and has 3 kids. And when I asked her about, what are some of the beliefs and traditions of the culture, she said her family believes that the husband must work to provide for the family. The wife takes care of the household duties and the children. Drinking alcohol is prohibited for Muslims, so is consuming pork or pork products. Women are to cover their hair, for it is disrespectful to show their hair to men who are not directly related to them or live with them. Ramadan is an important time for reflection for Muslims. They don't eat during the day. This is not applicable to pregnant women and children, but during the night, all can eat. And this goes on for 30 days, once a year. And let's see, number 3, she said, yes, she believes in the traditions and cultures. She believes that they make her and her family good Muslims. And let's see, number 4, she likes that American women do exciting jobs outside of their home. She likes the freedom of not wearing what is it, the habit? How do you say that? Hijab outdoors. She also likes the American tradition of celebrating Christmas and loves giving her kids presents. I thought that was weird, but anyway.
Wow. Wow.
And number 5, what are some of the good things about American culture? She likes that there's no dictatorship here. Many are, she said, a lot of them were afraid of President Trump's ban on Muslims. And she also liked the freedom of religion is guaranteed. One of the bad things about the culture, a lot of kids are disrespectful to their parents. And the ugly in American culture, the way the government handled the COVID-19 pandemic.
Mm.
So that's, yeah.
So what did she say about changing? You know, if there's anything that she could change about her culture, was there anything that she would change?
No, I don't think so because, based on tradition, they're so deep rooted in that, they see that as that is the way it should be. But I kind of got the feeling that she had a little envy as
Mhm.
far as like women, American women, like they can have jobs and, do it basically what they want to do. So if anything she would change, I think it would be that. But we all know that's not going to happen, not in that culture. But
Right.
that's the one thing I thought that she was, didn't like, but she didn't say that. Well, she said she likes that American women do have exciting jobs outside of work, but that's something, they don't have.
And that they can
So,
work. Yeah.
huh?
And that they can work. Whereas,
Yeah.
yeah.
hmm And, can just do what they want to with their hair or makeup. Well, they wear makeup. They do.
Mhm.
But I think if she could change anything, that would be one of the things. But that's a male dominated culture, so that's not going to happen.
Hmm. You don't seem to have faith that it'll happen, that it'll change.
Who, me? That's not, well, I don't dibble and dabble in that. So it's not my monkey, not my circus. So, but I'm, based on what she was saying, that's the one thing I, thought that she didn't like. But she didn't say that, but based on, number four, that's the impression I got.
Okay.
Little envious there, not in a malicious way, but
Right.
you
Yeah.
know,
Hmm. All right. How about you, Cato? What did you get?
Well, as I shared with you both last week, I do have an Indian friend who works at the gas station where I gas up my work vehicle. And I gave these questions to him, and instead of filling them out himself, he uh he gave them to his sister, and she ended up filling them out. Okay, but number one, the name of her tradition, the name of her culture was Indian. Okay. The question number two, what are some beliefs and traditions of your culture? She responded with number one, when buying or making a new house, you have to perform a ritual so there's no evil power in the house. Number two, women have to change their surname to their husband's after marriage. Number three, you can't have your dog facing your home temple when praying. It's considered bad luck. Number four, on Diwali, a festival, people clean their houses completely so that the goddess Lurami will enter their house to bless them. The next question, do you believe in the traditions and culture? She responded with no. On question number four, what is anything that you would like to change about your culture? She responded with, I would like to change how they see the woman's job and responsibility. In this culture, women are supposed to stay home and take care of their family, and women can't enter kitchens and temples also, some certain places when they are on their periods. There are some superstitions that are really unnecessary and false. She responds to the next question. What are some of the good, bad, and ugly comments you see within the American culture, if any? Some of the good things in American culture is that women have somewhat freedom, and when they have a child, she is important to be included in legal documents such as schools. Some bad comment that is she see is that many people are still racist. The beauty standards are wrong. That's what I got from Lakshay's family member.
Right. So you see a lot of similarity in some things with yours and Kathy's contact as well.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, which just shows that the captives have to be set free from all of this mess.
Right. Yeah.
So why can't they enter certain periods when they have their monthlies? I mean, places when they have their monthlies. What do they consider them to be
Not
cursed or
clean.
unclean or something?
Yeah, they're considered not clean.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to talk about a lot of that because one of the things that we have to do is one, understand where, who they are and why they believe what they believe, if they believe anything, or what they were taught, and then be able to have, realistic conversations regarding our Creator and what He was invoking through the scriptures regarding some of those things. Because a lot of the things that they practice from a natural perspective, and you're going to learn. Captain Q already knows this because we've gone over it several times before. But in one of the lessons that I put together before years ago, and we'll be going over, addresses a lot of this in regards to women, marriage, and who the Most High was speaking to, and what the expectation for them was to occur. And because of what we know through plagiarism and paganism and everything else, they twisted it to be something else.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to go down that path, today in this lesson, but we're definitely going to talk about all those things because those are things that we can address with them and tell them, what you're practicing is wrong. Here's why. And that's what's going to happen when we have to have these discussions with other leaders. Even having those discussions today with other leaders. Here's why your doctrine is false, and being able to articulate exactly why it is. But again, we're not going to dive into all of that from the women's perspective in marriage and all of that. But we addressed that in the Garden of Eden lesson that I that we'll be going over that I did as well. So, but you
and
see,
I'd like to add a quick note.
Sure.
And Kathy, when we get to that lesson, buckle up your safety belt because you're on a roller coaster ride. Okay?
Oh my.
Let's go rock your
He
world.
did his thing in that lesson.
Better have my Wheaties for that one, huh?
The Most High really blessed us through that lesson.
I was blessed when he gave it to me to put it in that form. But
wow.
yeah, it's good.
Unlike what the rest of the world has believed about a lot of things according to the book,
exactly.
they truly don't know what is transpiring.
Mm-mm.
When they get the revelation of what these things mean by what is shared with us through these lessons, then they'll say, oh, okay, we've been doing it wrong the whole time.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So much more to come.
Exactly.
But I shared with Q just about an hour before we met that I did my own the homework assignment as well, but I did it a little differently. So what I did was I sent out a survey to some people that I know in different cultures, and and some of them reside at different places around the world, and they responded. So I want to go over that with you guys. And I sent out a Google Forms survey, and this is the survey here, which is on culture and tradition survey. So I asked, again, what is the name of your nationality? 2, what is the name of your cultural heritage? 3, is your cultural heritage aligned with your nationality from your perspective? I added a few things in here. So I asked them if their nationality was, their cultural heritage was aligned with their nationality from their perspective. Then I asked, what are the top 3 traditions of your cultural heritage? And do you believe in most or all of the traditions taught by your cultural heritage? Is your cultural heritage influenced by mainstream religion or belief system from your perspective? And what do you like about your cultural heritage? What, if anything, would you change about your cultural heritage? And then what are their thoughts about American culture, naming the good, bad, and ugly in their response? So as you can see, I got 11 responses, and we're gonna go over that real quick. So some of, I had, and some of these are, I'm gonna categorize these together. The African Americans, I have 2 here, 1 American, which was African American as well. And these are also African Americans. I'm not sure why he responded this way, but he's Ghanaian. Then there's one that's Egyptian, another Ghanaian, Nigerian, Portuguese, and South African. So we have a wide variety of people from different countries that gave their responses. So here are their responses to what is the name of your cultural heritage. One person said it was stripped from us during slavery. The other one said Akan, which is in Africa, Zulu, which is in South Africa, Arab, which is in the Middle East, or Egyptian, Yoruba, which is also in Nigeria, Christianity, which we know is all over the place, American-born African, which one of the responses, the God tribe that's in Ghana, that's a tribe or culture that's in the Ghanaian, in Ghana. Then another person also said that their culture has been stripped from them. Another person said their cultural heritage was African American. And then the last one was Portuguese. So when I asked, is their cultural heritage aligned with their nationality from their perspective, you see 45%, which is 5 people, said maybe they're not entirely sure. 27.3, or 3 people, said no, it's not aligned. And then 3 people say yes, it is aligned with their nationality from their perspective. So they believe that their cultural heritage is aligned from a nationality perspective to their culture. When asking what are the top 3 traditions of their culture, one person said they didn't know. One said food, music, dance, and kente cloth. Another person said belief and practices related to spiritual ancestry or ancestors. Traditional ceremonies like weddings, marriages, and traditional ceremonies. And patriarch is a traditional ingrained heritage of the Zulu people. Another person responded with religion, family, and history are the 3 traditions. One person said Christianity, Muslim, and traditional culture are the 3 traditions of their cultural heritage. I didn't understand how that would be, but then someone else replied, going to church, celebrating holidays with loved ones, and eating soul food. Another person replied, I'm not sure. Someone else says identity and naming system, twin rights, and I'm not sure this Hamoa festival. I'm not sure what that is. I'll have to ask about that. Someone else says, I don't know what the 3 traditions are. Someone else says there have been no real traditions carried over from the base of my African heritage. And then the last one is praying before eating, Sunday family lunch, and football. That's what they think their 3 traditions from their cultural heritage is. So then when I asked, do you believe in most or all of the traditions taught by your cultural heritage? 81.8%, which is 9 of them, said no, not all, but I believe in some of the traditions of my cultural heritage. 2 of them, or 18%, says, yes, I believe in the traditions of my cultural heritage. So we can see that's a big, that's a big gap there. Where 80%, 81% of the people that are polled don't believe that, they don't believe in most of the traditions of their cultural heritage. Is your cultural heritage influenced by mainstream religion or belief system from your perspective? 54.5%, or 6 people, said yes, where 3 people, 27.3%, said no. And only 2 people, or 18.2%, said maybe they're not sure. So what do you like about your cultural heritage? One person, don't know my true cultural heritage. Next person, it's inclusive in energy. Next person, I enjoy the expression of a warrior spirit through the Zulu culture. The Zulus were regarded as one of the greatest warrior tribes in Southern Africa until the Dutch and English arrived with their guns. Zulus to this day are very proud of this heritage. The next person, family connection and our reach history. The next person, they just like it. They just like their cultural heritage. Next, celebrating with loved ones. Celebrating with loved ones. The next one says, we have endured. So they feel like they have endured, until this time with whatever. They would need some clarity there, but next person says, it's uniqueness, respect for nature, hospitality, ancestry, and the history. The next person, it has been taken away from African Americans, the cultural heritage. The next person says, we are attempting to create cultural traditions that can be passed along to the next generation. And the last one is food, drinks, clothes, and music. That's what they like about their cultural heritage. So as you look at some of the responses, you can see, you can pretty much tell who's responding to what in some manner. You should begin to see that, how certain people are responding and putting it together with why they may say what they say, which is what I want us to understand. Then what, if anything, would you change about your culture? So the first person says, to know my true ancestry. The second person says, not applicable, they don't know. I guess, they didn't have a response. The third person says, Lobola is the first thing I would change. It's archaic and unsuited to the world that we now live in. I'm not even sure what that is, so I would have to look that up. Next person said, I would like to change the useless habits such as relying on God for everything without putting little efforts to achieve people's dreams. And I don't know why the next person just says yes, but yeah. And the next one, what they would change is that that we as a culture embrace community, village care again. And another person says they would change consciousness. The next person, influence of mainstream religion, if any. Next person, to know my true ancestry. That's what they would change. And I wish we were a more cohesive group. That's what they would change. And the last one, religious beliefs and traditions, they would change. What are your thoughts and opinions regarding American culture? Name the good, the bad and ugly in your response. The good, opportunity; bad, greed and lack of empathy towards others; ugly, label others that don't agree with the so-called American way of life; lie to and take away of others to increase the wants and needs of this nation. Interesting. The diversity based on the various groupings in the country that also make it difficult identifying what that culture is. I don't know how that's good, bad, or ugly, or what, they didn't really answer. I guess they're saying that's bad or ugly, but didn't really specify and didn't name anything good there. Next person said, what culture? LOL jokes. I like that. Just like in South Africa, America is a melting pot of numerous cultures mixing together to create something unique. Everything from cowboys to hip hop and South Americans creates a vibrance that's very important to celebrate and experience. A byproduct of Western culture is the habit to economically control and enslave people. This is the ugly. With oppressive systems in effect, generations have suffered both within America and outside of America. The US is particularly has far too much control and influence over too great of a part of the world and would do the world good to see this influence extinguished. Next person says, I'm not fully aware of the American culture. However, I do like the current government political view. Oh, do not like the current government political view. The next person says, I believe American culture is good. So far, they serve the living God. Next person, America does not take responsibility or ownership for the wrong inflicted on Black and brown people. We are a culture of convenience and do not commit to processes, relationships, or community. The next person says, appearance of inclusiveness, but really it isn't. They're talking about the United States showing or trying to make themselves seem undivided and inclusive when it really isn't. Then the next person says, the bad is the racism and related issues. The good, acceptance, love, tolerance, and availability to opportunities. The next person says, good, opportunity; bad, greed; ugly, lack of true empathy for others. The next person says, American culture is currently at its worst. There has been little to no progress in a society known for injustice. And then the last one, most good things in American culture come from African and Indian origins. Capitalism is a disgrace and the fast food industry is a joke. So there you have it. So in that one short survey, we got to learn a lot of information from, and this is, just the response of 11 people, about how they feel, one, about their own culture, their heritage and their nationality, things of that nature, and what they would change or what they, I didn't ask what they wouldn't change, but some of the things that they would change. So I want to go back to something that we heard, a common view, especially from women, that the two of you had, where women's jobs and responsibilities and marriage. Well, no, let me not go there too much because I could spend the whole day on that. Like I said, we'll pick up with that on the other lesson, the Garden of Eden lesson. I don't want to dive in that too much, but what I do want to point out is that we're talking about faith. and what people believe in. So one of the reasons why I want to do this exercise is to find out, if people believe in what they've been introduced to. What they've been introduced to was their natural culture, the traditions of men, and what they've been taught from a natural perspective. So those are things that come by way of cultural heritage from their perspective. One of the things that I was looking for, and of course I didn't get it, was from a spiritual heritage or culture, and getting what, the understanding of what that is. That would mean they would be an outcast and they would be set apart from everything else. And of course, I didn't really expect to get that anyway, because I knew my audience. But that's one of the things that we should be looking for is from a cultural heritage. If someone were to ask you, what is your cultural heritage? What would you say? What are we to say? With who we are today, what should our response be to what our cultural heritage is?
One of the sons and daughters of God.
Okay.
I agree with that. That pretty much says it all.
All right. So what is your name? And if we were to ask you, because I started to answer my own questions and put it in here, but then of course that wouldn't give me the room to. I would have gone over that already, and I didn't want to do that. So, so if we were to utilize what you just said, the sons and daughters of Elohim, would that align with our nationality from your perspective?
Well, our nationality, according to the scriptures, are Hebrew Israelites of the Spirit.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But that title also can be interchangeable as well as being one of the sons and daughters of God, because the objective is to submit to doing the will of the one true creator, which is what he wants everyone on the planet to do. And based on a lot of these responses, we can see the division that the enemy has sown amongst the inhabitants.
Right. So what would your response be for, is your cultural heritage aligned with your nationality from your perspective?
Well, mine aligns because I'm following the word of the Most High of what he's revealed to his children. You know what I'm saying? And it does not relate to what man has placed on people in terms of following the traditions of men. So mine does align.
So you would say yes?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Good. All right. So what are the top 3 traditions of your cultural heritage?
The top three traditions?
Mm-hmm.
Well, for one, we are monotheists that only serve one creator, okay, who also has instituted for us to follow his holy feast days, to keep them in their due seasons, and to operate by the Spirit, and also walking in the spirit of the Mosaic law.
All right, good. Look at you. Give that man an A.
I know, right? I agree with what he said.
All right. So do you believe in most or all of the traditions taught by your cultural heritage?
That are aligned from the word of the Creator? Absolutely.
Yeah, right. We're talking about
Yes.
you. Do you believe in most or all of the traditions taught by your cultural heritage? By the
Yes.
answer that you've already given, that's what we're talking about.
Yes.
Okay, good. Is your cultural heritage influenced by mainstream religion or belief system from your perspective?
No, it isn't. It is actually suppressed.
All right. Okay, good. And what do you like about your cultural heritage?
What I like about my cultural heritage is that the information that is shared through it is able to put out many of the fires amongst the earth's inhabitants that are keeping us all divided and separated from each other. You know, through man's tradition, they have created a lot of confusion by way of the serpent, which people are unhappy. You know, as we've gotten from some of the surveys, we see that people are divided. We see that people are unhappy. We see that they don't believe in these cultural traditions and stuff. So as a result, our culture and heritage is able to solve all of mankind's problems because they have been instituted on the right foundation from the Creator, who has created all walks of life.
Very good, very good. Anything you want to add to that, Kathy?
I was interested in the one where I think the question was, what do you like about your culture heritage? The one on there, and they say food, drinks, clothes, and music.
Mm-hmm.
I was just curious about that. But no, I agree with everything he said.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
You like that McDonald's, Kathy?
No, but yeah, the one about the fast food is what did they say? The fast food is I can't remember what they said, but I started laughing when you read that one.
Yeah. Yeah, about the American culture. Capitalism is a disgrace and the fast food industry is a joke.
Mm.
I was like, okay. Yeah.
But as you can see, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, they must have worked in the industry or something at some time in their life. I mean, you know.
Yeah. Or they just see the bad in it. They see all the negative, you know, the preservatives,
Hi. No. Sit down. Sit. I'm sorry. Had a visitor of the 50-pound baby, the husky. He's getting ready to go for his walk, so he's excited. Now he's gone. I'm sorry.
Right.
So as you can see, did I ask you? Let me ask you. What, if anything, would you change about your culture? Yeah.
What is anything that I would change about my culture?
Yes.
Well, I believe that my culture is the best culture and is sufficient for all walks of life. So, because it is given to us from the Creator and He doesn't change, I wouldn't change anything about my culture.
Look at that man. Give that man an A.
I know.
That's what
I'm
I'm
gonna copy off of your paper.
That's very good.
But I think the one thing that and like Q said, it's like it's oppressed, but I think the one thing that I would like to change is people think you're crazy when you start talking this way, you know? And I would think that, probably change the way it's viewed, because if it's not something that people are used to, or if it contradicts what they know and everything, they'll treat you differently, like, oh Lord, here he come again with that craziness and blah blah blah. And so that's one thing that, because if you talk to someone about, if you're a Catholic or Jehovah's Witness, they don't really view you that way. They don't say you're crazy or whatever. They just look at it because that's what they know. It may not be their way, but they have heard of, things that different religions do. But I think when you speak to people in these terms, they look at you like you're crazy.
And that's exactly what's written, how it would be. And that's the price that we pay for being who we are. And we have to pay that price until the day of reckoning, or the judgment on earth. And then that's when it will all change. And then it will be just the opposite. Everybody will then say, oh my gosh, you were saying this all along. You already knew these things. You know, and then they will look at you totally differently. But the time that we're in now in the wilderness, in the shadows, is not the time for us to be very popular at all. It's just the opposite. Whereas their mainstream societies and religions and things of that nature under Satan's rule is very popular, and people can talk about it during, you know, they can lie in bed with each other because that's what they do. They accept each other's religions, which is what we shouldn't do. We should make our yay, yay, and our nay, nay. Either you're hot or cold. It either is or isn't. It's either truth or lie. And that's where we are going to always be different from them in this world. And that's why we have to pay that price now to do that in order to usher in the kingdom on earth, where they will then see who we are, why we were saying and doing the things that we were doing, and that it was of our creator that we were doing those things. And they knew not who their creator is. That's where judgment comes in. They know all of that in a twinkling of an eye. They're going to know who you are just by what you spoke and by what you did and what you believed in versus what they knew, what they believed in, and what they spoke. And they're, you know, and it's irrefutable. You know, the judgment comes on them from the scriptures, from the words. That's what they're going to have to deal with because they know that they did not believe. So, you know, unfortunately for us, and fortunately, we're in a position now where we just, you know, we don't have that popular vote and that popular fame, and think that's, and it's for a reason. And this is all to bring forth, you know, the Most High's plan of salvation, and that's why the inheritance is greater for the prophet reward versus the righteous man's reward as well. So it behooves us to be in the place that we are now so that we can benefit greatly in the end, which is where most people don't want to be. Most people don't want to come out of her to, you know, go through what we're going through and then get the reward later. They want their rewards now. And that's why Satan's dominion looks so appeasing to them, for them to get their, what they think are their rewards now. So we have to, you know, continue in our understanding and knowing that, you know, we're in a place where the scripture said we would be, and it's the unpopular vote. You know, people aren't going to like you. You know, they're going to ostracize you, criticize you, mock and scoff you, all of those things, like you just said, which only aligns with the word and tells us who we are, which also tells us who they are not. And that's the difference. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Absolutely, it does, because Satan has this platform under his wings right now.
Exactly. Exactly. So, you know, going over this, and I was telling Quest, you know, one of the things I want to do is send out some other surveys to, you know, I want to buy a list. You know, you can buy a list of people that will do surveys and things, and send out a massive blast to, you know, people that may do a survey, and people that I, you know, don't know, or that can, you know, that may want to honestly answer questions regarding certain things. And I want to target the religious and spirituality people that have an interest in religion and spirituality, and target some of those people, and probably others too. I got to figure out what category they would fall in, but I want to target, you know, several different groups of people that can, you know, give their honest answers and bring that back to us so that we can learn one more how to address some of these matters from a spiritual perspective, which is what we are to do, and what the answers and responses should be when we interact with them, how we are to interact, and what are some of the things that we are to do in trying to show them the correct path versus the path that they're on. Again, that's not the popular thing that how we position ourselves. It is very unpopular. We may lose friends, we may lose family, which that has already transpired. Um, but and the Most High knows this, but He knows that we're doing this for His name's sake. It's not about us. It's about Him. It's about doing the right things for the right reasons. And if we stand for wrong, we can't pretend, that all of the right that's in us is really right when we're doing something wrong, or allow, it to just, go with no thoughts or anything else. The other part to that is that we are to sow seeds into them. So, and it's not about getting into fights or big, overly, big debates necessarily. It can turn into a big debate, but it's about sowing seeds. So, sowing some small seeds sometimes about different topics and things, just like this, traditions and culture, and asking questions like I would always do with all my friends. Why do you believe that? And let them respond and let them hear themselves speak it, and let them really recognize sometimes that they don't really believe what they thought that they believed. And sometimes it takes that for us to understand who we are. So we have to have those conversations and introduce, something else, and that's what the word is. It's something else. It's the renewing of the mind. So just wanted to throw that out there that, that's what we ought to do. But as you can see from this, people have, and I didn't go and ask the question specifically about where their faith lied, but I wanted to ask the questions all around that, because you tell me where your faith lied and lies in the questions that I asked.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see where people have different faiths, what they think about their culture, things of that nature, that tells you where their faith is. And they tell us who they are, with things that are right and wrong about their culture, the American culture, all of that. Now you're telling me who you are and who you are not.
Yeah.
And that's how we are to discern, certain people. And it's not to say that, of course, we were once where a lot of them are in our understanding. So it's not about, tearing someone down by any means. It's about giving them the opportunity to lift them up by giving them the seeds that we sow into them to help build their faith.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
All right, good.
I was actually considering throwing in a bonus question as well. If by asking them if there was something that was better that we could offer you that is better than the cultural heritage that you have been a part of, would you change if necessary? Or
Yeah, that's funny, because that's the question that I was going to ask in the other survey that I want to put out. Not in this one, but in another survey that I want to do. And that's the survey I want us, to put that together. All of us, we can put a survey together of the questions that we would like to ask, and why we're asking those questions, and the feedback, what we can actually do with that feedback. So we're going to work on that in the next few weeks, putting that survey together.
cool.
All right. So the scriptures tell us in Matthew 17 that we are to have the faith of a mustard seed, and so are they. Elohim, have mercy on my son, for he is a lunatic and sore vexed. For oft times he falls into the fire and into the water. I brought him to the disciples, and they could not cure him. Then Yahusha answered and said, O faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? Bring him to me. And Yahusha rebuked the devil, and he departed out of him. And the child was cured from that very hour. Then came the disciples to Yahusha apart and said, Why could not we cast him out? And Yahusha said to them, because of your unbelief, for verily I say unto you, if you have faith as a grain of mustard seed, you shall see unto this mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall move, and nothing shall be impossible unto you. So what is Yahusha saying here? Either one of you, that's a question.
Well, by the illustration, he was showing the disciples that they didn't have faith in what was being taught to them. So when they experienced the difficulty of removing the devil from the individual, it became difficult for them to do. They lacked faith. With our belief, it comes faith that we are standing on the very thing of this belief that the Creator has showed to us. So this is a part where faith without works is dead.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So if we're not able to cast out devils, which is a part of the signs that follow the true believers,
Right.
then it shows that something is wrong with our ministry, or that we have a lack of faith, which takes time for some people to build that. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what it's saying. And to have, faith of a mustard seed, you got to start with something. Start with just a little bit of faith and build on it.
Mm-hmm.
And as your faith is built upon, you can cast out devils. You can do all the things that he says that he was able to, that Yahusha is able to do, which is the end result. We should be able to cast out devils, just as Quest just mentioned, because that's the signs of true believers. We do that how? Through the word that we now present to them, through the hearing and seeing of the word, which is the understanding. And that's how they are healed. That's how the devil is rebuked. That's how the devil is departed from him.
Mm-hmm.
Just like it was from us.
Exactly. Somebody came sowing seeds that we were unfamiliar with. And by the words that he expressed with us, we knew that they were unfamiliar, because the rest of the world taught us that all we need to do is believe in Jesus and we are saved. But yet nothing was changing. I was still participating in false traditions and customs. You know what I'm saying? The world is still chaotic.
Exactly.
So that can't be the right avenue that I was on that leads to salvation. Even from a Hebrew Israelite perspective, until I heard a brother come saying something that was strange doctrine, there was just that inclination in myself that says, you know what, I need to know more. This brother has something that I don't have and I don't hear amongst the people that I congregate or associate with.
Exactly. And that's exactly how our sanctuary came together. And now we all speak the same thing. We all understand the same thing, which is still not what the world sees and understands at all.
Exactly.
Because we're still in the wilderness, in the shadows of the popularity of this world, because they're seeking after things that are not of our Creator. We're doing just the opposite.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But this scripture depicts how, again, part of the remnant protocol and how things happen. Sometimes it's just one person at a time. When you bring in others by sowing the seeds, and asking, what am I to do? Like here, where the disciples said, what did we do wrong? How come we weren't able to cast the devil out and you were? because they, and that's why they received the answer that they did, because of their unbelief. They didn't believe that they could really do that.
Mhm.
All right. Any questions there?
I'm good.
All right. So as we read, Yahusha was able to heal by walking by faith in the authority of the Father, by walking in the authority of the Father. Yahusha wants the same for his disciples that follow him, yet they didn't or don't possess the faith to heal. So just as we read with Yahusha, we are to walk in faith and not by sight, bringing light to the spiritual landscape. It is through faith that we can do all things through Yahusha, who strengthens us. The spiritual understanding, intelligence, and insight allows for Yahusha and his allies to be the change agents, powerful influencers by bringing light to the spiritual landscape of the natural world, thereby ushering in the kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yes, sir.
All right. So for the rest of, for part two, I want us to continue on the reading of the lesson. Oh, before we go there, and I'll just go back over this slide again, which I took from last week. Are we to have faith in the scriptures of the Holy Bible, which we know we are? Faith comes by hearing and hearing the word of Elohim. So we have to hear, see, and read to understand the word of the scriptures. All right. All right, so we're gonna continue where we left off last week. And we're not gonna go through this entire lesson because it is very long. But I did want to pick up and read a little bit more from here and making sure that we have the understanding. So we left off here at Roman numeral 6. There will be a lot of tight faces when Messiah returns. Quest, would you like to read?
Absolutely.
All right, good.
That was James' favorite topic.
Tight faces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, point 6. There will be a lot of tight faces when Messiah returns. At the same time, Yahuah will only send trap after trap, stumbling block after stumbling block, and snare after snare unto they who are of his non-elect. Jeremiah 6:21, Romans 11:9. Now, why would he do this? It is these individuals that sided against him with Lucifer during Earth Age number 1 and never repented. In other words, these individuals are the ones that are believing lies that only result in the destruction of the creation after repeatedly calling unto them repentance during Earth Age number 1. They blatantly refuse to adhere to Yahuwah's standard of righteousness. As a result of adhering to nothing but lies, they received Lucifer to be their God, thereby choosing to be accountable to him. Luke 16:13, Romans 6:13 through 19. As time ran out on Earth Age number 1 and the door closed, they were all standing on the wrong side of the fence, having foolishly and unwisely chosen death. Their God, Lucifer, who they didn't know they were serving, simply was not able to deliver on any promise he made to them. Therefore, they were all recorded in the book of life to receive the righteous penalty of death, destruction, and annihilation, having lost the right to the tree of life. While in the midst of living out their judgment in their flesh and blood body, here during Earth Age number 2, Yahuah simply will not have their spiritual sense turned on. As a result, They will never have the ears to hear or the eyes to see to becoming born again. They will simply continue to adhere to nothing but lies, thereby coming against Yahuah and his elect, the sons of God. They will stay bound to their lying political and religious worldly systems and views, and therefore will not come out of her to go without the camp and enter into the wilderness. They will think that all communication on this spiritual level will be nothing but utter foolishness. 1 Corinthians 2:14, 1 Corinthians 1:18 through 25, 1 Corinthians 3:19. As Yahuwah's word says, having not become born again, it will be impossible for them to see the kingdom of God, understand the real truth regarding this spiritual kingdom that cannot be physically seen by one's physical eyes. It is he who has been given the ears to hear and the eyes to see that is able to do as Yahuwah commanded, and that is to worship him in spirit and in truth, John 4:22 to 24, thereby adhering to a sound understanding of his words, which are spirit and bring life, John 6:63. It will be only God's elect having received his Holy Spirit that will be able to rightly divide his word, thereby being able to soundly distinguish the spiritual from the physical, 2 Timothy 2:15 and 1 Corinthians 2:14. They will be fully equipped to ascertain the correct understanding of his spiritual truth that is hidden therein in the form of the Hebrew idioms and spiritual language, as well as via the mysteries, parables, signs, and wonders and prophecies, Mark 16:17 through 18. Unsealed mystery number 18, signs, wonders, and miracles. It is yet again a sad state of affairs, but all in accordance with the salvation plan, that all of the lawbreakers, workers of iniquity, they who are without obeying Yahuwah righteous law, will only be left to die in their sins. This is the ultimate penalty Yahuwah will assess unto them for having continually usurped his righteous power and authority, that entails them rejecting him, Yahuwah, his son, Yahusha, who is the only source of eternal life provided for mankind and his true children, spiritual Hebrew Israelites, the sons of God, the Yahudi. John 10:1 to 2, and Matthew 16:1 to 3. Their love for lies and love for the serving false gods, idols, and images will only in the end expose them all for whom they really are, lovers of Satan. It is for this reason that as we approach the end of this world age, these rebellious incarnated creations will continue to only mock, scoff at, reject, and refute the witness of common sense truth that is being testified by the sons of God. John 16:1 to 3, Matthew 5:5-11. They all were born, incarnated, spiritually dead, and will still be in the same fallen state. Yahuwah has not given any of them the ears to hear and the eyes to see because of their unclean hearts to not love the truth, his truth. This is a truth that is politically correct, extremely hard to endure, and extremely controversial. When in Rome, the sons of God simply don't do as the Romans do. No how, no way, as do all of the others that are sold out to the system. Therefore, Yahuwah will send upon them all the spirit of strong delusion, so that they will believe their own lies, so that they will be ultimately destroyed. Isaiah 66:4, 2 Thessalonians 2:10 through 12. Yahuwah is still and always will be in total control of the activities that go on in his universe. The fact is that if man chose God before, then God will see to it that he chooses him again. However, if man didn't choose God before, then God will also see to it that he doesn't choose him again. That is a powerful statement. Yahuah will allow him to only choose a false God, another Messiah, and another gospel, 2 Corinthians 11, 1 through 4, propagated by lion shepherds in wolf clothing that are all Satan's servants merely transformed as angels of light, 2 Corinthians 11, 13 through 14. So in their ignorance, they will be foolishly rejecting Yahuah, Yahusha, and the Yahudim. They will all be exposed at the end of time as their false idols and images they received, Jesus, Muhammad, etc., will simply not be able to deliver on not one promise they will have made to their victims and prey. Unsealed mystery number 25. Will the real Messiah stand up? For man to think to any degree that Yahuah is dead or has lost touch with his creation only shows that he really has his screws loose, and God will excitedly and dramatically prove it when this world actually comes to an end. It will be once we reach the end that Yahuah will give all that rebelled against his one standard of righteousness, as established by his son Yahusha, all of the physical and tangible proof they need in order to prove he is real and truly exists. However, it will only be proof that will be given a little bit too late for the time to believe until the first resurrection will have yet again come to an end. It will only be at this time appointed of the end of this world that the sons of God will be openly revealed at their physical appearing, Matthew 27:51 to 54, Revelation 6:12 to 17, Luke 16:26, Romans 8:19, Joel 2:16, to this deceived world, Revelation 12:9, on Judgment Day. All of the wicked, mocking, and scoffing inhabitants of the earth by the mass billions, especially the agnostics and atheists, will be openly exposed as having been totally duped into serving Satan as his blinded leaders. There will be a lot of tight faces, billions upon billions worldwide, when Yahusha's spiritual truth, his spiritual kingdom, and his spiritual people that cannot be physically seen at this time are finally physically manifested. All of mankind will at that time have the same ears to hear and eyes to see, to now be able to understand the truth of the witness, as the veil of the temple will have been rent to allow all others to see over to the other side. However, what's physically seen will result in there being a blessing for the sons of God, as the rebellious and wicked are going to be officially cast out of Yahusha's kingdom. They will have been righteously and perfectly deceived by Satan, allowed by Yahuah, due to their desire to simply love and follow after nothing but political and systematic religious lies. Surely there will be much weeping and gnashing of teeth. However, there is good news in the midst of the spiritual earthquake that will rock the mind of every single inhabitant on the face of earth. Revelations 11:13, Matthew 24:7. In the midst of having put up with all the lies, mocking and scoffing because of his love for even the wicked among his creation, Yahuah will not put an end to the life of this rebellious people. Unlike Satan, Yahuah will move forward with his agenda and deliver on every single aspect of his word that he said he's going to do. Isaiah 55:11. Yahuah will physically manifest his Yahuah will physically manifest his spiritual kingdom that will result in there being true love, peace, and harmony being restored back here on this earth for all, even to the advantage of all of the deceived billions worldwide. It is in this way that Messiah is not only the savior of his own people of spiritual Israel, Isaiah 30:15, Isaiah 45:17, but is also the savior of the entire world, John 3:17, Joel 2:22-23, saving all from being bound to being in Satan's clutches of mystery Babylon the Great. However, as Yahuwah's righteous judgment continues for their sins, the first will now be last, and for their righteousness, the last will now be first. The righteous elect, the last, Hebrews 13:13-14, will have properly positioned themselves to be in line to now receive a double portion of eternal blessings, Deuteronomy 21:17, Isaiah 61:7. All lying pastors and preachers, the false prophet, and the lying politicians, the beast, both living and dead, will be dethroned, raised, and taken out of power and cast into the lake of fire, the second heaven. Daniel 12:2 and Revelations 19:20. This will be righteous judgment assessed against them for having caused the entire world or worlds or their day to, it should be of worlds of their day to be deceived. But again, Yahuwah will have grace and mercy on all the mockers and scoffers that were received by their wicked leaders. He will now lift up his righteous leaders, the sons of God, as well as his standard of righteousness, the spirit of the Mosaic law, to now plant the one righteous governmental system throughout the earth, Isaiah 2:1-10. As the inhabitants of the earth now submit to his righteousness, that which is now a living hell will be made a true place of love and unity. All of mankind will finally see peace. Do you see what I do? Do you see what we see every day as a true believer? Point 7. God's spiritual kingdom, his true church. Throughout this book, in both volume 1 and 2, much information has come forth to let us become quite acquainted with Yahuwah Elohim, the God of Israel. One of the basic principles covered was how Yahuwah goes forth to establish his righteousness at this time amongst his spiritual people. He reveals to them the foundational method as to how they are to interpret his word. By doing so, it will cause them to not be led astray into developing false doctrines. By way of the rule of thumb, it was shown that the New Testament only confirms the Old and doesn't bring forth anything physically new or different than what is firmly rooted in the Old, Isaiah 8:20. Hence, we can now understand what God meant when he said there is no new thing under the sun in the old, Ecclesiastes 1:9, and then had this truth confirmed in the new by way of the parable of the old and new, Matthew 9:17-18. This is a truth he still hides from the understanding of they that continue to usurp his righteousness, his righteous power and authority. Therefore, we can conclude that God's church in the new would be relatively the same as his church in the old, with all members being a part of the same one body, Exodus 12:49-50, Matthew 12:25. A. God establishes this one true church in the old with Adam. Yahuwah's kingdom or church, which is the Greek word ecclesia, which means the called out ones, hence the phrase come out of her, where the her is Mystery Babylon the Great, as earlier explained, was initially established with Adam. It was later reestablished with Noah since apostasy or falling away from God's original truth, chart A, had set into the church household kingdom after the days of Adam. It was then later reestablished with the Hebrew Abraham, where Hebrew means to cross over from death to life. Yahuwah did a work of restoration to yet again implant his one pure and original truth back here on the earth. The covenant right of his church was then righteously passed down to Isaac and then later to Jacob. Jacob's name was later changed to Israel. The name Israel means one that wrestles with man and with God. During this time, Yahuwah's one truth was preserved by word of mouth, being passed down from generation to generation. It was then sealed with the Hebrew Israelites, upon which it was then recorded in a book, the Holy Bible via Moses. The acceptance of these Hebrew Israelite men was confirmed by the Creator, as he now referred to himself as being the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of Israel. The truth of the scriptures, by definition, bears witness that all of these individuals and they during the Old Testament era that followed their righteous ways were all a part of God's one true church. Again, by definition, all of these sons of God have been obedient to God's spirit and thus come out of her. The entire false political and religious systems of their day entered into the wilderness. Each each one would cross over from death to life, thereby becoming a legitimate spiritual Hebrew, a child of Abraham's flesh that possessed the Spirit of God, thereby having his spiritual senses turned on. He now will have the ears to hear and the eyes to see. As one entered into his wilderness, outside of the mainstream of polluted society, in an isolated place where Yahuwah now gets his full undivided attention in order to properly teach him of his holy ways, he will now wrestle with God and man himself. He strives to now walk in the ways of God's standard of righteousness. He will continue to live a life in this manner, again by definition as an Israelite, right up to the appointed time of his death or the appointed time of the resurrection, which will occur at the end of the present world age. The focus of God's true church is not directly attributed to a physical worship building called out ones that many today known as the church, which is also referred to as mosques, temples, synagogues, etc. Let me read that again. The focus of God's true church is not directly attributed to a physical worship building, called out ones that many today known as the church, which is also referred to as mosques, temples, synagogues, etc. It was and still is, as we will see, focused on a group of individuals, God's elect only, will who within their lifetime realized that the entire governmental and political system they were living under, Mystery Babylon the Great worldwide confusion, was not of the Creator, the God of Israel. Upon making this realization that the false prophet, ministers, and teachers bound to these buildings set up a false idol of the true Hebrew Messiah, Yahusha, in their physical places of worship to deceive their blinded sheep into staying therein, God's elect will have been given the ears to hear and eyes to see in order to soundly understand that a counterfeit had been placed into the physical place, worship place. Unsealed mystery number 22, the abomination of desolation. Having seen, not with physical eyes, but with the understanding of their mind, as based on the truth of God's word, the abomination of desolation standing in the holy place, Matthew 24:15-16, God's elect would simply come out of her, Revelations 18:4, flee into the mountains, the spiritual place of safety, which is where the true Messiah, his truth, his spirit, and his people can all be found. Isaiah 2:1-2, Hebrews 13:13-14, Genesis 12:1-4. Yahuwah's elect will have been either put out of or forced out of any of the polluted physical places, worship places, thereby being spiritually killed, being hated without a justifiable cause. 1 John 3:15, John 16:1-4, Matthew 5:11, Revelation 6:9-11. Their witness of truth against the leaders of these polluted houses will have simply been rejected, having fallen on deaf ears. This is due to the fact that Yahuah has not given the false leaders and worshipers therein sold out to these leaders the ears to hear and eyes to see. Therefore, they will not see what God's elect see. They who truly possess his Holy Spirit, for Yahuah and his Holy Spirit does not dwell in places made with the hands of men. Hebrews 9:24. So, they who love the truth will have no choice but to reject the truth witness. So they who love the truth will have no choice but to reject the truth with true witness to them coming from the place of physical worship, all in accordance with the salvation plan, since it is geared to cause to be saved God's elect only. However, by the continual rejection of truth by those bound to the physical worship places, they are only exposing themselves as having unclean hearts, which is exactly what they did during Earth Age number 1 as it pertains to predestination. Yahuwah will now be able to righteously judge them accordingly when we get to the end, where he'll perform yet another major work of restoration. It is Yahuwah's plan to merely allow Satan and his children to set up, run, and control all of the physical worship places in the world. Mystery Babylon the Great. They only set up all of their they only set up all of their false religions, spiritual fig trees, religious systems that cannot bear any good fruit, children of the kingdom that will only be full of leaven and sin. Matthew 16:1-12. Then at the appointed time, when he chooses to save one of his elect that is worshiping therein, but is simply innocently deceived, Yahuwah will give him the spiritual ears to hear and the spiritual eyes to see. They will now understand that they have really been worshiping in a place of worship where Satan and his ministers, transformed as angels of light, are controlling to their detriment. The blinded worshippers therein, nothing but a spiritual whorehouse. He now realized that God, the God of Israel, saves his people, the sons of God, and builds his church lively stone by lively stone, over time, one by one, for the most part, during times of a spiritual famine, Amos 8:11-12, as he calls them out, Ecclesia, of the midst of mystery Babylon. Such is the case regardless of what era of time we are in, whenever full apostasy sets within the camp. It is in This capacity, by biblical definition, that all true believers, all sons of God, insofar as the Old Testament is concerned, from what's been shown thus far, are all spiritual Hebrew Israelites, even Adam. They all obeyed the voice of Yahuah, John 10:1-27, by becoming a part of his spiritual church, an entity that finds refuge from the pagan societies of their day in an area Yahuah refers to as the wilderness, outside of all physical worship places where Satan and his servants are ruling. Other scriptures tell us that this area is called the place of safety or even the mountains. These are all spiritual terms, Hebrewisms, that are a part of Yahuwah's spiritual language, Mark 16:17-18, representing the fact that God's people of the Spirit have fully come out of the mainstream of all societies where wicked men has set up false governmental and religious systems that only comes against his standard of righteousness. These satanic systems only result in the masses of people that remain therein to be totally deceived. It is here in the wilderness where real truth is found, since God does not dwell in places made with the hands of men. Hebrews 9:24. So his spirit, and his truth simply cannot be found in such places. Yahuwah Elohim's true church or kingdom, household body, temple or dominion of spiritual Israel, again by biblical definition and not any of man's twisted misnomers, will be found in the wilderness during times of a spiritual famine. Whenever Yahuwah Elohim physically sets up his kingdom on earth, which we will see he has done this before, he will have had built for himself a physical temple or structure that he does enter into. However, over time it becomes polluted as the pastors and priests therein fall away, thereby no longer be walking in the let me see. It should be in his standard of righteousness. The people therefore become apostate, following after the ways of the wicked leaders, thereby falling away from Yahuwah's original and pure truth. Yahuwah merely sets up camp again by going without the camp. As a spirit being that physical man cannot see, Yahuwah will merely leave the physical temple that has been fully polluted, infiltrated with nothing but sin, lies, and leaven, as he takes up residency without the camp and in the wilderness. Meanwhile, all that are striving to obey Yahuwah by way of his word, the pure in heart that loves the truth, and not by way of the false leadership running the physical temple, will do as he commands them to do in situations like this. They will come out of her to then take up residency in the wilderness, to join him there in order to continue worshiping him in accordance with his standard of righteousness, a righteousness the false leadership has terribly polluted or either simply have done away with, abolished. While in the wilderness, God's elect will not be worshiping in any physical worship buildings supposedly set aside as God's house. Instead, they will do so on the seaside, in their homes, or anywhere they can find to congregate. All of these elect sons of God that have come out of her, over time, one by one, entering into the wilderness, collectively comprised of God's true church, spiritual Israel. They are an entity that cannot be seen with the physical eyes, but only soundly understood with the minds of spirit men, they of God's elect, that only he will give the ears to hear and eyes to see unto full understanding of the scriptures. It is critically important that this truth be known, John 8:31-32. Yahuah has commanded no man to build any other type of physical worship building, for if so, it will have to be built to the exact specifications he gave Moses to build the tabernacle and temple, which no man can do. Therefore, his elect that have already come home unto true salvation, who have departed from partaking of worship in physical buildings, which are nothing but simple houses of vanity. According to the word of God, it is during times where there is no spiritual famine that Yahuah can be openly found in the physical worship place. This applies to his temple only. All entering therein will truly be worshiping Yahuah. However, it is always during times of a spiritual famine, when apostasy sets in, that Yahuwah Elohim cannot be openly found in the places made with the hands of men. He can only be found when one comes out of her and goes without the camp, entering into the wilderness. Yahuwah now operates in secret, as he hides himself from those committing all types of spiritual whoredoms within the camp. However, at the same time, he will reveal himself to his elect that go to find him without the camp. So, how do we know when there is a spiritual famine and when there is not a spiritual famine? If we are going to use our physical eyes, then we can simply tell by way of looking in the land of Jerusalem and seeing if Yahuwah is in his physical temple, meaning that a physical temple is actually built in the place that he desires. If there is a physical temple standing, then we can conclude that God is there. Righteousness is reigning, meaning there is no spiritual famine. Or we can conclude that God has departed. Unrighteousness is reigning, meaning God simply has not had the temple torn down yet, meaning there is a spiritual famine. But if we look over there and we do not see a physical temple at all, then we can safely conclude that God has departed. Unrighteousness is reigning, meaning there is a spiritual famine. Therefore, in this case, Yahuwah can only be found in the wilderness without the camp of the polluted Israelite society. We can further conclude then that everything going on within the camp is of Satan. As a result, Satan will be ruling therein, as the people will think that God and his spirit are still in there. However, if we are going to use our spiritual eyes, 1 Corinthians 2:15, then we simply have to look to the leadership. To do this, we need to put on the whole armor of God, Ephesians 6:10 through 18, thereby soundly understanding his word, so that we are not snared by a twisted word from the mouth of one of Satan's servants. We can conclude that if a faulty leadership is in place, then there is a spiritual famine. And if so, then Yahuwah cannot be found within the camp. A great apostasy will have taken place again. However, if a true leadership is in place, then Yahuwah can be found within the camp, and all is well. We saw in Unsealed Mystery number 4 and 5 that salvation is of the Messianic Jews, spiritual Hebrew Israelite, as shown above under the Old Testament, and will be confirmed by the New later. Therefore, if anyone other than these individuals is assuming priesthood positions as the givers of Yahuwah's law, Matthew 16:1-3, John 10:1-2, then you can best believe that a spiritual famine exists and will be in full bloom. Again, since salvation is of the Messianic Jews or the spiritual Israelites, anyone else falsely sitting in the seat of Moses are not even qualified by Yahuwah to administer his standard of righteousness among the people. Why not? Because He will not have given them the ears to hear and the eyes to see, to be able to successfully do so. Not one of them. The God of Israel operates in the divine order, as just stated, that salvation is of the Messianic Jews. 1 Corinthians 14:33, verse 4, 1 Corinthians 14:40. If anyone walks contrary to this, then they simply will think they have the truth, but really don't have his truth at all. As a result of their apostasy, they will only be going forth with an apostate, polluted gospel message, other than the pure original Hebraic one, 2 Corinthians 11:1-4. By doing so, these liars and thieves will only be playing into the hands of God, because his salvation plan calls for them to do exactly this. He will only utilize their false religions and places of worship to test the hearts of the people that enter therein, looking for him. Deuteronomy 13:3, Exodus 16:4, Exodus 20:20, Romans 12:2. One with a pure heart will eventually come out of her before time runs out. One without a pure heart will be terribly snared into staying therein. He will unwisely allow himself to be terribly bamboozled, just as Satan beguiled Eve. He will be snared into receiving a false gospel, Judaism with Christianity and Islam to come later, and a false Messiah, Yeshua with Jesus, Jesus, and Isa to come later. None of them will be able to deliver unto any of them eternal life when we get to the physical manifestation of the end of the world. Exodus 21-7. Therefore, throughout time, the God of Israel will use these spiritual famines to serve as a spiritual sign within his salvation plan that will truly test the innermost depths of the hearts of the people that are within the camp looking for him. If they are heeding to the Spirit, his words, John 6:63, which is what he has instructed them to do, and not heeding to the flesh, the lying words and false traditions of men fed to them by their political and religious leaders, then they will come out of her and enter into the wilderness. They will have to do this because during these famines, God's truth simply cannot be found within the camp. Again, all that remain therein will think they are serving God, especially because of the physical worship that is going on by the spiritually blinded masses that do not have ears to hear or eyes to see. 2 Timothy 3:1-5. All of the worship will only be a falsification of Yahuah's true worship that is only going on without the camp. God's elect will have walked away from their worship tables, having partaken of the bread of life. They will not have eaten of the leaven and poison that comes from the worship tables and out of the lying mouths of the beasts, politicians, and the false prophet, the lying pastors of their day, all operating within the camp.
Okay, I want to stop there for now. Okay, that's good. A couple of things I wanted to point out. The use of the phrase standard of righteousness that was consistently used. You know, we've been talking about faith, we've been talking about cultures and traditions and things of that nature, and having a standard of righteousness. That phrase, along with what was pointed out earlier, with the tradition of the preserved word being passed down from generation to generations for the Son of God, the sons of God, or something that I want us to be cognizant of and aware of. So when we have those conversations with other people, as we discussed with the survey that I took earlier, and when I asked Quest those same questions, he answered the way that we should be responding to it, with the standard of righteousness, understanding who we are in the spirit and not of the natural, which is what everyone else answered to, from their cultural heritage and how they looked at it from a national perspective and from what was passed down from either a genetic perspective, from a religious perspective, or traditions of men perspective versus a spiritual perspective that comes from the lineage, the cultural lineage of the Most High. So I wanted us to kind of just chew on that a little bit more and understand, how that all coincides with what we were talking about regarding faith. And as we approach other people with the conversation about their faith and why they believe in what they do versus who our creator really is and who he is in you, but you have to allow yourself to get there through the right protocols. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It does.
So I know last week, and I'll just point out last week, I think it was last week or the week before, we talked a little bit about how to approach other people, whether it's in our families and our friends, when we have these conversations about faith and spirituality and what we believe. How do we do it without offending them? How do we do it in a manner that's going to be productive and not counterproductive or things of that nature? And that's something that I want us to spend more time in understanding. One, having the faith, just as we pointed out, the faith of having the faith of a mustard seed, that the Most High is going to do what He's going to do and utilize us as a vessel or tool to get the message out there, because that's all we are. We're just a messenger. And having faith that He's going to provide us with the food that we've been eating and chewing on, for all of these, Sabbath studies and our own individual studies, so that when we come together with someone else, we can sow the seeds to, with the standard of righteousness that will start to hopefully resonate within them, that will bring them out of where they are, whether it's their cultural heritage, their religions, their belief systems and things of that nature, and bring them onto the other side. So I want us to start thinking about ways that we can have these conversations. And sometimes it's not always pretty. And Quest knows this because he's been in several, or we've been in, a lot of these situations before. And it's not always comfortable, but it's not about comfort. It's about getting to the truth. So we need to, find out, if people really want to know the truth. If they don't want to know, then there's no need in pushing it. For people that do want to know, those are the people we need to have the conversation with. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense.
It does.
Yeah. So, if a lot of people, just as we know, even the churches and, their belief systems that say that they want to know the truth, one, we try the spirit by the spirit, right? So that's not comfortable. Iron sharpens iron, not comfortable, friction, things of that nature. So we have to be aware of all of those things that are going to come into play anytime we introduce something new to someone else that they may not be completely open to. But that's part of the conversation. How do we open someone, making sure that they have an open heart, open mind to receive that which is true instead of that which they've been walking in, which may not be true. And I think that goes back to a question that Quest came up with earlier, which is one of the ones that I had as well for the next survey is, oh wow, I just lost it just that quick. If we're able to demonstrate or show you certain things about why you believe what you believe is incorrect, would you be willing to come out and learn the truth of the matter? A lot of people aren't. They're so ingrained in their belief systems or their cultures or traditions or religions that they will not come out. They will tell you that they won't come out. They will tell you that I'm going to be a Baptist, a Jehovah Witness, Islam or Muslim for the rest of my life. I am never going to stray from that. That's what they will tell you. So they're not open to receive or hear anything, any counsel outside of that. But those that will say, well, yeah, if you can show me where I'm in error, those are the people that you can talk to. That's with anything. Because then they have the opportunity to have the ears to hear and the eyes to see.
Exactly.
I think that's a big difference in how we approach people and who we approach, and then what the impact is going to be, when we have those conversations. Does that make sense? Or any thoughts? Any thoughts? And I'm open. I mean, I'm just saying this. If you guys have another approach or feel like there's something different that we can do, I'm open to hearing those things as well.
I'm just curious, are you met with resistance more often than not, or from either one of you guys' experience?
Oh, yes, definitely. Definitely met with a lot of resistance.
That's what I figured.
Yeah, no. And that's what comes with it, because people are ingrained in, the traditions of men and what they've been taught. And I can think back, and just being, open and honest, I can think back to when I was a Christian or whatever. I used to resist sometimes when someone had something that was contrary to what I thought I knew. I was kind of resistant, even though I was really honest, looking back, even though I was a big dummy, in those terms, I really didn't know. I was blind, and I was blindly following someone. I think that was part of it, because of my pride, being wise in my own conceit. All of those things, made me, resistant and putting up, a wall to not hear anyone else, and that's not good. So I had to get to that point myself, where I had to learn that there were a lot of things that I just did not know, and it just did not make sense to me any longer.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Chris, what would you add to that?
Well, I mean, we know that this is going to be a difficult process, okay? Because people, as you were talking about it earlier, people have believed these lies, and that's basically what we're going to be fighting. We're going to be fighting against those devils that are in their mind, and in order to win their soul, we have to be wise at how we present the material that we believe in, which is something that I'm learning more and more, because last weekend, it's funny that we're having this conversation, like, I believe it was Sunday. I started trying to ponder on ways that I could address the world when I'm out there during my street and preaching. I've thought of ways to come and present myself. Like, I said, no, I can't try the suit and tie method, because that's already been done. And they just gonna think, oh, here comes another street preaching minister that's gonna try to take my money and stuff away from me and get me to follow and believe what he's trying to say, So I've been trying to develop new ways of marketing this truth to people. And so far, by this discussion, I'm kind of puzzled at which direction we should take, because no matter which way we bring it, as Kathy was just asking in her question, we're going to be confronted with people that are going to reject what we say or refute what we say. It's going to be confrontational, as we even saw with the Messiah's testimony. You know what I'm saying? We're going to really have to fill out people that are open to hearing what we have to say, and go from there. But we got to be creative now,
Right. So, and we can only talk to someone that can hear us, that has the potential of hearing what we're saying. We're not going to walk up to someone who's deaf and start talking to them. It makes no sense. And same thing, the same thing from a spiritual perspective. We have to discern what they're open to hear and receive, which tells us who they are, and that's how they can become healed. Um,
Mhm.
and taking that time to have the discussion with them. And a lot of times I think we overcomplicate it too. I think as we build relationships with people, those relationships can now form into something else. We don't always have to go and boom, start just reciting a bunch of scriptures and things of that nature. That's not how it happens at all. That's not what Yahusha has done. That's not his protocol at all. Nor should we try to take that protocol. That's what religious folks do, or from Satan's perspective, that's what they do. They'll just start throwing out a bunch of scriptures, this, that, and the other. And people say, wow, they really know their scriptures. No, they know how to recite their scriptures. It's just like reading a script. Just because you can read a script or, oh, that's a great actor, only to find out that, no, they're not really acting. That's just who they are. Now they're on the screen being who they are. That doesn't make them a good actor.
Mhm.
So it's the same thing. Now, the difference is how we approach them and understanding one, the relationship that we build, just in our everyday walk. Hey, how you doing? This, that, and the other, whatever. And then sometimes we have to understanding timing. Timing is everything as well. Sometimes it's not the time to bring up certain things. But just befriending a person and being friends first and letting them see you, let them hear your speech and how you talk and how you walk and what sometimes it may come up, they may bring up the situation. Well, what is it that you believe? Because it comes up with me when people ask me, or they'll say Merry Christmas or this thing. I say, oh, thank you, but I don't celebrate the holidays or whatever. But thanks for the sentiment. Now that opens the door to, oh, well, what do you believe? Or, things of that nature. That's up to them. Do you see where I'm coming from?
I do.
And that's not confrontational at all. I'm just letting them know, okay, yeah, thanks, but I don't celebrate those holidays, but thanks for the sentiment because I know that you meant well in what you said.
Mhm.
So sometimes we just have to use that kind of wisdom and counsel as well to know how to deal with folks and then let them open the door because then they're opening it for themselves and allowing you to walk in to have the conversation.
I agree.
A lot of times we're just knocking on the doors of people that ain't home. You know what I'm saying?
I get it. I understand. Oh, you got ones that want to whoop my behind.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Right. And you have several of them. And there's no need in putting ourselves, that's not the position we're supposed to be putting ourselves in at all.
But that's the testimony of Messiah.
No,
You know what I'm
I'm
saying?
saying we're not to, right, it's the time, they're going
Right.
to want to do those things. So they may say certain things. We're not to put our, necessarily just walk into something knowing that we may go just be killed, No, we have to operate in wisdom and knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
excuse me, in our counsel and how we do things. They're already going to hate us, yes. They hate us because of just who we are. But they're going to hate us silently. They're not necessarily going to want to physically kill us that in that manner. But when you put yourself in a position where they're going to physically want to kill you, that's something different. They're going
Right.
to they're going to want to spiritually kill you. Yes, they're going to want to knock you down. They don't want to hear that crap. That's what they'll say. Oh, I don't want to hear that. This, that, and the, oh no, it's this way, that way. I'm a Muslim, or I'm this, or I'm a Christian. No, we're not trying to hear that. So now, that's the spiritual killing that they're doing, but the physical killing, no, you don't put yourself in that position. So
There
does
was
it,
yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
It
I
does.
don't know, you guys probably never didn't hear it, but there was a case here, probably 10, 15, 20 years ago where this group of uh well, it was a husband and a wife and their two small children. They went up to a group of teens at a rest stop, and the husband and wife were JWs, and they witnessed to them. And basically, the kids, they didn't want to hear it because they were gothic and all this other stuff, and they killed them. And the little boy was the only one that survived. I think he was 2 years old at the time, but they stabbed him in the eyes or whatever.
The
But
kid?
yeah, he was a kid. He was 2 years old. This has been, he's probably about the age of my son now, but it was a big case. I think it happened on the Tennessee and Kentucky border, but they killed the parents and the daughter, and the little boy was only one that survived. And I think he went to live with her family. I think she was from Sweden or somewhere. But
Mm.
yeah, because just because they went up to them at a rest stop and they, decided they was going to witness to them,
Mm.
Right.
and they probably, looked at them and the way they were dressed, and I guess they were in all black and their goth gear, and
Right.
they
See,
decided that they needed to, to talk to these teenagers, but everybody's not approachable.
well, and
And
I'm glad you brought that up in the sense that, and this is something that Quest and I have been having conversations about with some other folks as well, because a lot of people, put on the garb to make themselves stand out differently in the way that they look, which now brings attention to you. They're to know us by our spirit. We're supposed to act differently. One in excellence. So we should have a standard of excellence, number one. So when people see us, whether it's at work, whether it's in our families, things of that nature, they see a standard of excellence and righteousness that calls you out already. It's not that you dress differently, and things of that nature because they're looking at, robes and things of that nature that are listed in the scriptures, and then they want to go put on that physical attire. That's not how we're supposed to stand out. But they are supposed to look at us and say, well, you act different. You carry yourself in such a way that brings, positive attention that makes me want to have a conversation, or sometimes it makes people feel envious and jealous and all that too. Don't get me wrong, because that, especially in the workplace, you're going to get a lot of that because they see excellence coming out of you. And when they see excellence, there's going to be a counteract to that. The contrary to that, you're going to have people that want to take you down, so to speak, because you have a standard of excellence. But
uh,
we can't let that stop us from being who we are and letting other people see, because sometimes when those things happen, other people come to fight that battle with you just because they see that you're doing the right things for the right reasons, and so didn't have a right or reason to come at you the way that they did.
yeah, I just looked it up. It was called the Lilith murders. It happened in 1997. But basically, after they went to talk to these young youths or whatever,
Mhm.
they followed them and carjacked them, and they shot and killed the mother and the father and the daughter, and they left the young boy with the disability by him being shot.
Mhm.
Um, but they all received 25-year sentences for the deaths, and it was really sad because it was in Green County, Tennessee, which is like a border between Tennessee and Kentucky.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was, that just came to mind when when you
yeah,
said that. I just remembered that case because I thought it was so awful.
Wow,
yeah.
that don't make any sense.
Yeah, just because they were witnessing to them. And I used to be, when my sister was here, I used to tell her, because she used to go out, and where we live, there are certain places that they just don't take too kindly, to
Mhm.
us.
Right.
And I would tell her, I said, I mean, she never went by herself, but I'm like, it doesn't matter, they can shoot both of you all. I was like, you need to be careful, because first of all, sometimes they don't want to hear it, and they definitely don't want to hear it from you. So you don't
Mhm.
need to put yourself in that situation.
Yeah, and and that's another instance of taking things literally, going two by two, and they go door to door. The JWs do, and that's not what the scriptures are talking about to do. But um, their courage in doing so and what they're trying to accomplish is good. They're just going about it from a literal perspective, and we're not called to do it that way. We are called to definitely, be of excellence and righteousness, but we are not called to go to someone's door to, house, physical house, two by two, the way that it, from a literal perspective, as they do. And we'll be talking more about that. That's part of the spiritual language that they twisted to be something else.
Mm-hmm.
And it can cause a lot of unnecessary harm to them because we should not put ourselves in harm's way. And by going to anyone's doorstep of a person that you don't know, you're instantly potentially putting yourself in harm's way. You don't know what's on the other side of that door.
Right. And I can't remember the religion, but they ride the bicycles, um, and they come to your house in twos. It's two young men. Oh God, what is
Do they
I
wear the
can't
white shirts?
Yes, white and black. Yes.
The Mormons.
The Mormons, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, they came to my house once, and if your husband is not at home, they're not allowed to enter. So
Mhm.
they would stay outside, and I think I told you guys this, but at the time my neighbor was a Jehovah's Witness, so he spotted them and saw he probably knew who they were, so he decided that he needed to come and intervene in our conversation because I was just listening to him. I wasn't going to be rude or anything, but he came over with his Bible and started arguing with them and this and that and the third. So I basically just told them to you know just leave, and I told him to never do that again. I said if they were, they didn't come to your house, they came to mine. And yeah, he was just very rude about it. I was so glad when they moved. But it's like, oh my
Well,
gosh.
yeah, and I don't want to present, sometimes there's still uncomfortable situations, those things will arise, but we should
Hmm.
not put ourselves in that position where it's going, one, where we should not put ourselves in a position where
It becomes confrontational.
Right. And I
unnecessarily,
thought it
yeah,
was rude
pushing,
of
confront,
him
yeah.
because they weren't talking to you. And I don't even talk to you. I mean, like not like in a, we speak hi bye, but you don't have the right to come over to my yard and my front porch to entertain who I'm speaking with just because you don't agree with what they're saying. You don't even know what they're saying to me.
Hmm.
Well, I
And he
think
just took it he just took it upon himself to come over, and they were young boys, they were
yeah.
probably in their early 20s or whatever. But yeah, he was just rude.
Well, I think the rude part is what got you because if he came over in a different manner, you probably
Right.
would have had a problem with it. And that's the
Right. And
thing.
he was one that was what's the word where they don't talk to you? What is it? Disfellowshipped?
Excommunicated or
Yeah,
yeah.
he was excommunicated from the church because of, you know, whatever he did. And so I'm like, okay, first of all, let's not do this again. It's they have the, I'm going to listen to them and hear whether I agree with it or not. But you don't have the right to come galloping over in my yard with your Bible and, trying to. The kids were, you can tell they were kind of blindsided and kind of scared of him because, his approach. And I just thought that was very rude.
Right. Yeah.
So
And that's
I
how
just,
we should stand out too, because we should not be that rude in our delivery. And just as
hmm
you read, throughout all the scriptures now, Messiah is very sarcastic in his delivery sometimes of certain things, but not rude. It's just sarcastic because other people will ask, crazy questions or say certain things and not expecting the answer that they get, which is, a truthful answer and sometimes put back on them. But that's how people are too. When you're having conversations or discussions, sometimes people think that they want to put you in a corner or put you in a box and thinking that you're going to respond a certain way, and for you to respond differently than what they're expecting, now places them in a position that they feel uncomfortable. And that's what we do. Not to make them uncomfortable, but to, that's what it does. That's that double-edged sword again. It doesn't feel good necessarily, but it brings forth the truth. Now, are you willing to go through that? And that's what they have to ask themselves. But we don't want to put ourselves in a position where they feel uncomfortable, where they're going to turn around with a gun or something and blow us away. That's, we don't, nobody should want to put themselves in that position.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, sometimes, that's the lead into the discussion. Are you willing to feel a little discomfort to get to the end result of where you want to be? It's just like, some people want to have a career at doing something, but they have to go to school for 4 to 6 or 8 years to do it. Sometimes that's uncomfortable, but that's the process. Are you willing to do that? A lot of people are. So if you're willing to do that process, why aren't you willing to take on this process?
Mm-hmm.
So when we allow that to be the lead into some of these discussions, that and let them know it's not going to feel good. I'm going to tell you, and let them know your experience, because when we start with ourselves, and putting that out there and how uncomfortable I felt, it now opens the door for them to say, okay, well, if you went through that and you got to where you are, I can do the same thing. I can, I can make it through the discomfort as well. That's how we, put people at ease, so to speak, to, let their guards down. Let's have this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But
it is a process.
I can also tell you that's not what happens in most religions. They're not going to tell you the truth of the matter regarding their infidelity or their this or their that, or how they really think and feel and how they really live, because they know it's going to be seen in a different light from that which they speak and which they do.
Exactly.
Oh, most definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Most definitely.
So that's, going back, to our conversation a little bit earlier with some of the people that we received feedback from with our questions. When we have those conversations with them, one, we've already established a relationship with them. These are people that you already know. So they would feel a little more comfortable, and, just like they told you about their traditions, you can tell them about yours. If they ever ask, just like I asked Quest, and he responded correctly, now it would probably bring more answers from them. If I were one of them, if I was Muslim or Christian or whatever, and Quest gave me the answers that he did, it would now bring forth more questions for me. And then that's the door opening for you to now present your case. Just as they did when you asked them about theirs. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It does. It definitely has to be the right setting for you to present those things to them, though. Because as we know from the past of dealing in places on like the online platforms,
oh yeah,
it's just chaotic.
Oh yeah.
It's like once you sow the seeds of truth, here comes one of Satan's ambassadors right behind them, right behind us, to uproot the seeds that we just sown.
I can imagine online, because people are more bold when they can, hide behind that keyboard.
So you don't even know the half a Quest can tell you many of stories.
Oh man.
We've
gotten into so many wars in the past.
Yeah, and we would be on some, and I would be in the background, and and actually we're gonna spend a lesson or two on some of that, because there's some scripts. A lot of these were online, and Jay kept a lot of the scripts where he was in back and forth discussions with them and chats and things of that nature. And I have all of those, well, not all of them, but I have some of those chats that he had with people, and some of the things that people said, and he was threatened, many a times. Like you said, Kathy, a lot of people on the internet will, they'll open up and they'll be whatever they can behind a keyboard anyway, and they'll threaten you and, say all kinds of stuff, whatever, only because they don't want to deal with really having just an open conversation and dialogue about which they, stated that they wanted to. And just I know that Quest brought it up before about Pal Talk, which is one of the platforms that we would go in, and they would go in a lot more. They would have several rooms, different types of rooms, with rooms of religions or spirituality, things of that nature, and then it's broken down from a category perspective, and then within that category there's different topics. So people may open a room and want to talk about, say, the parable of the fig tree, something very specific. And then people would come into that room and start having discussions. And sometimes it would start off, okay, people are going back and forth and bringing some, a little bit of knowledge from different perspectives. And then someone may throw a wrench in it. And instead of, kind of chewing on it and understanding, they want to attack it and come from a different perspective and, things of that nature. So it becomes wild or all over the place. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it starts out as something good. And even with some of the topics or categories may be something good to discuss, but then they turn it into something else.
You just have a whole lot of mass confusion going on those platforms.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Wow.
So now the document that we were just going through, the lesson with called You Don't See, I'm going to email to both of you. Well, Quest may already have it, but because we're on page 18, it's 73 pages long. We're not going to go through the whole thing, but I did want to bring out certain parts of it regarding the lessons that we were going over regarding faith. But the rest of it, I just want you to read and study on your own time. And then, of course, we can always come back and discuss things in more detail as needed as well.
Okay.
Z, can you send me another copy of it?
Yeah, I will.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any questions?
What kind of supercomputer are you using? Because I saw about 50 icons open up there.
Look at you, look at all at my screen.
All up in your business.
All up in it too.
Guys operating a supercomputer here.
Nah, it's just a regular laptop. It does have a lot of memory. Sometimes it doesn't act like it does, but I got like 12 gig of memory in this laptop.
Okay.
But yeah, I keep a lot of pages and things, or a lot of applications. Yeah, you see all of these. Yes, I keep a lot open, and that's just one. I have several of those.
Browsers running?
Huh?
You got several browsers running at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, you
Hey, look at all the tabs here, and then all. So yeah.
Yeah, he has a supercomputer.
Nah.